I am the photonic human, the Homo lumen. This is my true nature. The next stage in a universal spiritual evolution. And the entire planet all at once must bear witness. My clothes, the dirty rags that offered no warmth on the side of mortality, are instantly incinerated to leave only the light sleeve generated by immaculate parties. From the tips of my toes to the last hair on my head, I am the activated Starman of glittering inferno, who forever cradles the ever-burning light of celestial favour. No mortal force can be my equal. No mortal force can stand in my wake. That was good, wasn't it? I remembered all the words. Starman is a story of hope for the years that follow and for those who dwell there. And Starman is more than a story. It is a work of prophecy. Indeed, it is my most recent work of prophecy. And throughout the pages, we navigate the evolution of the next stage in our spiritual transformation. We see how the first of the photonic humans is on the brink of emergence, like a wave coming out of the ocean that is the energy of our Mother Nature, universal nature. And what follows is the clear and blinding light of mankind's true destiny. I love writing, and when I write, I am completely and totally alive. And when I write, I feel like the Starman of glittering inferno, who forever cradles the light of celestial favour. Because when I write, I am carrying out a larger part of my sole purpose. Writing is what I'm meant to do. A writer is what I'm meant to be. And I can only hope that I do my art justice by matching the healing divine fire that rises through my written word with an intellectual approach to the discipline that brings a good measure of sense and reason, a good measure of grounding. In other words, even though the creative process is completely out of my control and so much of what I'm involved in is simply coming from a higher place, I know that, and I hope that, I have learnt enough about the English language and the written word to be a clear enough filter that produces something of value to the reader, that grants a measure of light to the reader, that can be taken in, assimilated, and then used in a practical and helpful way in our day-to-day lives. That's what I believe makes a good writer. That's what I believe makes for good writing. The raw inspiration, yes, of course, but also the grounded sense of rhyme and reason, for there has to be rhythm too. Rhythm and tempo and meter. There has to be a good meter, along with the sense and the reason and the raw exchange of divine inspiration. And to quote one of the greats, Alexander Pope, who puts all of this far more eloquently than I ever could, it is hard to say if greater want of skill appear in writing or in judging ill. But of the two, less dangerous is the offence, to tire our patience than mislead our sense. There was a chaplain that we knew in Shrewsbury. When we worked in Shrewsbury, we were there for a good few years, and we got to know all of the people connected with the nearby churches. We got on with everyone, which was great. And there was this one guy that was quite a character, who would jump out from the graveyard backing onto his church from the thick foliage and grab people by their shoulders and shout a few words at them, whether those words were inspirational or otherwise. And I don't think it occurred to him that this was a strange thing to do, probably not the most appropriate thing to do. However, everybody in Shrewsbury knew him and loved him for it, and they knew that his intentions were good and kind. There was this little alleyway, you see, where he used to jump out and you couldn't escape. And this alleyway joined a gallery that we had then to the high street, and the shop was on the high street. And one Saturday, midday, Saturday, it was about 12 o'clock, it was a sunny day, and there was lots of people bustling about, and I had to get to the shop quickly. And I just forgot about this alleyway being this chaplain's lair. And I just took a shortcut, and he must have been there skulking in the bushes in the undergrowth thinking, yes, I've got him. And unsuspectedly, walking down the alley, he jumps out, he grabs my shoulders, snared, and he shouts at me, I can love you. Oh yes, I can love you, but I don't have to agree with you. Now, he wasn't talking about anything in particular. He just started all of his sentences like that, which probably goes to show that he disagreed with a lot of people, but it was just his way. Anyway, he went on to say that it had come to his attention that I wrote on spiritual matters and had written quite a lot of books on spiritual matters, and he'd thumbed through some of them. And he wanted to tell me that he thought they were really quite good. And in his own words, he said, I don't know how you do it. I've had a look. They're really quite good, and you've written such a lot. And I've wanted to write a book myself, you know, in my time. And for many years, I sit down and I get a pen and start writing. It's so boring. It's so laborious that I don't know how you do it. And I wanted to say, I admire you for it. Good for you. Don't know how you do it. And I said to him, thank you, that's nice, that you think what I've written is good. But when I write, it's not laborious at all, it's the exact opposite of that. It feels like I'm on fire, it feels like I'm alive, and there's this great channel of energy travelling through me, because in truth, that's what's happening. There's this energy from above coming through, and I'm the pen, and that feels amazing. I wouldn't want to live without that dimension in my life. I couldn't imagine living without that dimension in my life. And he leaned in, still grabbing my shoulders, and said, whispered, you're a strange creature, aren't you? Maybe he's right. Maybe I am a strange creature, not as strange as him. But he was a nice chap, and I think that brings up a good point, that when you are entering into your artistry, what you're supposed to be doing, you're on fire, you're alive, the excitement runs through your veins, and you wouldn't want to be anywhere than that. You wouldn't want to live without that dimension. It's possibly something that he'd never felt for him to say what he said, but good point, I think. I get much of my inspiration from above late at night. It's important to have a form of notebook or something to scribble in, so that when the words come to us, we don't lose them as the muse passes overhead and targets some other lucky writer who's about to inherit what we didn't get down and commit to the page. It's all important to get it down as it comes to you, however inconvenient the timing may appear. It would be disrespectful to let the muse pass over in the hope that this Holy Ghost will make some kind of a U-turn at some later point in the day, or indeed night, when circumstances dictate that it should be a little easier for us to sit down, grab our favourite pen and start writing. Anyone who writes will tell you this. Whether it's poetry or prose or short stories, novellas or novels, the muse will not come back if you let her slip through your fingers, if you let her slip away from you. She does not work to any one mortal's diary or timetable. She is a law unto herself and works unto her own timescale, which is a timescale of the divine. What secrets she holds for the writer or would-be writer. What secrets she's willing to pass on, if only the scribe is willing to stop, come hell or high water, to catch her whisperings. What beautiful secrets, what untold visions might come alive in the act of simply stopping and listening. And what terrors, what warnings, what darkness can she uncover, so that mankind has at least a chance to plot a different course, a better course, a more noble course that takes into consideration the greater whole and the holistic universe and our brothers and sisters. But yes, for me, it tends to be late at night that she makes an appearance, maybe around midnight. That always seems to be the right time in my case. Like the spectres in Charles Dickens's A Christmas Carol, arriving at poor Scrooge's window and gently rapping, tap, tap, tapping. And then, regardless of the ungodly, or should I say godly hour, I must rise and then begin my seemingly endless scribblings. And to an onlooker, it might appear as though I'm possessed and have some kind of writing Tourette's. And in a way, they would be correct. In these early hours, if I'm lucky, I am indeed overshadowed by someone, by something that is far greater than myself. And I write. And it feels good to write, as though the universe has taken hold of my body and transformed it into some almighty pen. It feels more than good, actually. It feels totally awesome. On this one night, a cold and windy night, about 18 months ago, I caught the muse and started writing, but then, quite quickly, the words fell into living visions, and as I felt my pen come to a stop, another kind of journey took over. A journey that I'd soon portray in detail on re-emergence. I looked down at my body, my skin, to be more precise. And my experience and awareness sank deeply into the atomic structure of my outer shell. The outer casing that is my conjured form, and I fell deeper and deeper into this vision, this living conduit, until I could see the atoms that go to make up my flesh and blood. And I could see how the energy of the atoms are structured to create peptides and molecules, and more complicated systems built on top like DNA coding and recoding and RNA duplication that gives way to the potentially immortal organism. Not mortal, but immortal. A race of people, if you will, who have glorified bodies and bodies that live forever. And after all, is it not true that the atoms that go to make up our bodies originally came from distant suns, distant stars that had their time trillions upon trillions of years ago? There are clues to our incredible reality that we can glean from the heavens by simply looking up and looking most deeply. And we understand completely the answers that come on a completely feeling, spiritual level. We all come from light. We are all, by definition, starmen and star women. And so, as time unfolds and as destinies are uncovered, discovered, and then rediscovered, we must all return to light. And in this vision, I could see a fire within my atoms, my molecules, my cells, at the larger scale of my cells. There could be seen a fire, a purple, blue fire. The energy I was being shown had the characteristics of fire. And yet this was an intelligent fire. It was anything but random and mechanistic. And it did not destroy and consume. In fact, it did the exact opposite. There was a creative intelligence, and there was form and structure and purpose. Most of all, there was purpose. And I believe the poet William Butler Yeats has something to say about this when he wrote all those years ago. At midnight on the emperor's pavement flit flames that no faggot feeds nor steel has lit, nor storm disturbs flames begotten of flame, where blood's begotten spirits come, and all complexities of fury leave, dying into a dance, an agony of trance, an agony of flame that cannot singe a sleeve. Powerful words. To quote the mystic and poet himself, and I rose with this fire over timescales that felt more like many weeks rather than minutes. I rose out from the micro and into the macro. The fire within continued to rise, but now it was breaking free into tiny solar streamers and reaching like tendrils into the air, the space around me. And as I followed this journey, this path, out from my physicality, I found that I could look back at myself and glean some perspective regarding what was really taking place. And that's when it happened. From within the vision, my body combusted, and the internal brilliance was cool and invigorating. And as I breathed out from my fiery form, fiery from my toes to the last hair on my head, I knew that there were changes happening on a microscopic level within me, within all of us, that will eventually lead to the next major stage in mankind's spiritual evolution. And that's when Starman was conceived in that baptism of the most pure and cleansing fire. That's when Starman was born. And I invite you to feel this process within and embrace the inevitable shift, because on some level we are all beginning to feel these things right now. The cool fire of transformation. And I invite you to read and become a part of the Starman lineage and legacy. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Starman, the first of the photonic humans, and less than 70 years from this point in time. And this book gives a glimpse into these future times, these future events, and a glimpse at the very first transformation into a full, spiritually glorified body that can shift from matter into pure energy and then back into solidity and matter. The very first of a kind, yes, but the first of many. This is just the beginning of what dreams may come. Because very often, and in practice, before transformation, before any kind of next phase in spiritual evolution can be accessed, there is needed an experience akin with traversing a dark tunnel with no hope of emergence, no light that can be seen, and so we are, as it were, aimless. But then, up ahead, there is born a light through great courage dawning, and we run all the faster towards this light, and we know the shape of our own destiny, how we fit into the world and the role we must play. Not the role that man has given to us, that creates fear and encourages a self-serving attitude, but the role we were given by the divine and since the dawn of time, that our soul signature fits into perfectly. In short, as we look ahead at the current path that mankind is treading, we see with absolute clarity that in darkness we are revealed. In light we are redeemed. Thank you for listening. Cue Phil. I'd like to take a scrubbing brush to it, the earth in the 2090s. I wonder if, with a little work, it would come back like new. The sky, the grey swirling cloud, the toxins that choke all life, took to with good old-fashioned soap and water, like washing the mud and eons of silt from a masterpiece. might bring back the lustre and the colour and the bright halcyon blue of my earlier years, and the black footprint of mankind, merely existing rather than living, leaving its mark on the earth from horizon to horizon, might once again become the countryside and the rolling grassy plains and the hillsides. Might the dwelling place of Tannhauser be saved by such a magical brushing? Might the gentle sound of distant bells once again be heard and heard by all in unison and become the universal call of freedom? Might the earth beneath my feet be scrubbed clean too? The green lights are incomings, the red outgoings, relatively speaking from my visual perspective. I watch from 18 floors up. The night sky is alive with such automated comings and goings. Drone ships are reserved for Alpha and are perfect for close-knit flying in and around crowded areas, weaving between the hover stations and the gentle movement of the observation towers that float like oversized jellyfish in a sunless sky. Voyeurs and perverts, if you ask me. Who would choose such a job? A job that basically means watching, creepily watching, and watching a ground-locked every tiny movement. Weird, right? It's not just me, is it? It's not the most weird thing, though. Not at this point in Earth's linear history. From a W-gridder's point of view, there are safe areas and there are dangerous areas. If they behave and do what they're told and never overstep their pre-programmed line, then they're pretty much okay. But if they're doing something that they're not authorized to do, then it will be their life. Any show of serious free thinking or freedom of expression will cut a life short. Suffering for your art has new depths and, indeed, new meaning in this, the world of the damned. If somehow this world could be scrubbed clean, it would then need protecting from a similar fate, and the dirt and the blood and the horrors and the fears and the lies that are foundational to the dystopian landscape interface that stretches out before me. No sun, no moon, no morn, no noon, no dawn, no dusk, no proper time of day, November. I still have some culture left, not all burnt out by too much experience and too much time. Thomas Hood's clever illustration there, a picture painted in words and remarking on the last but 1 month of the archaic year. How it used to feel, how it used to look, the charred black tree against the sombre November sky. Can't tell what month it is these days, not from the ground-locked perspective. Every month is Hood's November. I read an article a long time ago. Boy, that's putting it mildly. A long time ago. I couldn't even say how long. The past is no longer past, but instead appears as a grey disk that forever spins before my eyes and before my conjured form. A conjured mass that constitutes my body, a phantom that constitutes my mind. There are black areas on my spinning disk, and these perfect black squares are simply the parts of my past that I cannot remember, empty pigeonholes with no message left to speak of, not a scrap to be unfurled and read and told out loud. But as the days roll by, I'm finding that nothing is beyond recovery. It has long been my intention to bring it all back and catalogue everything. And maybe before these writings are complete, I will even inform you of my real name. I am chronicling events leading up to the present. Recent events, and as far back as I can push, it is an act of faith and an act of sheer will, a stubbornly bloody-minded will. You never know what you're going to find there. Like the ad campaign preaches from every street corner, a shard of shining shard-side propaganda, emanating 360 and across the plains of its flattened dominion.
a spike of deceit pushing up through the wasteland of a war-torn past. There was laughter here once. There was laughter, and there was joy, and there was life here in the timescape of the long since gone archaic. But not anymore. Now there is only a shrieking alarm that fires over our heads and forcefully voices the same repeating words. The past is a foreign country. We do things differently there. We did not look after you, and we are sorry. Let it go, let it go, let go the past, and let us make amends in our brave new world, our brave new future, and let us build this future together. The message is meant for anyone who has not converted to the New World Order, and that might pose some threat in the near future if left unchecked. Where was I? Oh yes, the article. It had to do with writing. In particular, it had to do with writing character arcs. The advice for novice writers was to plan out every trait pertaining to the protagonist, especially fatal flaws and emotional obstacles that the central character needs to overcome. This approach to writing strikes me as very similar to the modern approach regarding living one's life, all planned out and locked into one track. There's no capacity to live in such an environment, for a planned life is a closed life. It can be endured, but it cannot be lived. The same is true of writing, true writing, really good writing. There needs to be room for movement and the faith that our characters, real or fictitious, like strangers that we happen to bump into seemingly by accident during the course of our day, are more than able to make connection with us and live alongside us and share in our experiences, and perhaps, with the passage of time, become really good friends. I'm writing all this on real paper, a newly opened box of biros placed to one side, all black markets of course. The punishment for owning such implements, death sentence. I'm not even joking. Such forms of documentation would only be adopted by terrorists and enemies of the state, for only such analog interface is guaranteed from the get-go to be off-grid. I'd like to just let my imagination run free and wild and full of life, but I'm sat here writing for a very good reason. This is not fiction. These are not dreamt-up characters. This is not merely a story that's spun for amusement and to pass the time. This is a total act of defiance, and one of those rare acts of absolute truth. This chronicle is currently only a few pages, and yet it marks the beginning of a better way of life and a call to revolution.